Alright, so problems. Let's talk about them. Yeah, that intro kind of makes this vid sound like a couples counseling, doesn't it? Regardless, in this video, I'm going to be talking about where I believe Limbus Company falls short, where its problems are. However, I don't want this video to be framed in a negative light. I'm making this video because I want to see the game improve, as I believe not talking about valid criticisms of something only serves to make it worse, as those problems may not be properly addressed. I mean, I straight made an entire video about this topic. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I've seen people go gorillas bananas whenever someone criticizes things they like. People are ready to hate another person for them saying the character in X game is mid. Motherfuckers will despise a sentient human being for their opinions on a fictional video game, which is beyond childish. So in this video, I'll be talking about all the negatives I find with Limbus Company, as I feel they will be important to discuss so they may be fixed. However, some of my opinions you may completely disagree with. That's just kind of how opinions work. However, I want to be clear. I don't hate the game. I wouldn't be making this video if I did. It's made out of love for the game, and because I love the sound of my own voice. However, let's get into the problems of the game. But first, a word from the sponsor of today's video. Tokyo Treats and Sakura Co are snack boxes that give you the experience of Japan from your own home. Each of the boxes give you 20 snacks monthly with different themes. For example, Sakura Co's September theme is the Autumn Moon Festival, and because of that, they give you an assortment of different foods and a beautiful tea plate. However, I'm gonna try out this food and show my thoughts on it. The first box I'm gonna try some stuff from is Sakura Co. They focus on more traditional Japanese food. Alright, now this is black sesame mochi, and it would actually be my first time having mochi, but this is so soft. It feels like it was just freshly made. You can even see it sticking to my hand. A, I now need to have a lot more mochi. That has changed me as a person, and B, it literally feels like they just made it and then gave it to me. Alright, so I got the tea here. You could see, I got the tea here. Let's give it a try. And as I suspected, this is again one of the very few times I'm able to drink tea without just drowning in its sugar to actually get flavor out of it. There was just so much flavor in it by itself. Alright, now this is the Full Moon Soft Chew, and honestly it is very soft. Yeah, my lord, this is so sweet and so soft. If I had like a bag of them in 10 minutes, they would be eviscerated, guaranteed. Now the next box is Tokyo Treats. It has more of a focus on the latest and exclusive food. Alright, so this is Kit Kat Chestnut, and as we all know, Kit Kat, you just cannot go wrong with it. It is absolutely amazing. Yep, it continues to be amazing. That is really good. It actually tastes like chestnut and chocolate at the same time. Now, these are Full Moon Rice Crackers. I'm gonna try them out. Alright, these are really good. I don't care, like full moon, half moon, quarter moon, yeah, give it to me. But don't just take my word that it's goated. In the description and in the comments you can find a link to get your own box so you can experience the Japanese Moon Viewing Festival from your own home. And you can use code Tsunul to get $5 off of your box. You could also get it as a gift, but yeah, let's be honest, I'll hoard it for myself. Also, provided with each of the boxes is a booklet that tells you more about the food and of any possible allergens. So thank you again for Tokyo Treats and Sakura Co for sponsoring this video. Now, I'm gonna start with the minor annoyances, pretty unimportant stuff, and from there move into the bigger problems. So, if you skip a luck stage, then you cannot get the daily mission for kills done. I know, I'm basically playing chapter 5 already with these deep new waters I'm treading. But, as I said, it's gonna be minor annoyances at first. Also, I don't believe skip should cost more than the regular run. I don't see a reason why it should. I know they grant you 1.5 times the reward, but since the payment is twice the normal amount, you're still getting punished for running it, which I think shouldn't be the case. It being skipped should be normal. It's incredibly boring to have to go into a stage and click win rate as I hold my mouse down on the screen waiting for a battle to finish. One that I know I cannot lose at all. Hell, it's gotten to the point where I've debated just making my team 1 a blunt damaging team, because that's what the level 3 EXP stage is weak against, and shit, Lord knows whenever I play the game I'm basically doing that and Alt F4ing immediately afterwards. That is, after I skip the threat stage. Yeah, I ain't sitting through the abnormality fights daily. Yeah, I may have made a smasher pass about them, but that shit was a one night stand. I ain't seeing them again. So personally, I believe stage skips should be unlocked when you finish the stage for the first time, and they should count towards the daily mission of enemies defeated, whilst only costing 2 modules per skip. It would just be a good quality of life. Aside from that, this is a problem that I want to state, though it's probably unimportant. That is, the lack of characters having equal identities and egos. Some characters, Ishmael, have way more identities and egos than others. Specifically Faust and Sinclair, and yes, I know that have an immense amount of biases, they are my favorites, but like come on. Yeah, the motherfuckers ain't got shit. Dog, Sinclair is already slimmer than a crackhead and they are starving my boy further. He needs to eat. Yo, look at him. This motherfucker has been eating nothing but bread. My lord, he needs a he-ego. And yes, I know that he's tied with Ishmael in terms of number of identities, but she has 3 that are meta and 1 that is really good, while Sinclair has 1 that is meta and 1 you use in case you don't have the meta one. Okay, I did it a bit dirty with that description, but still. However, I don't view this as too much of a problem, as Project Moon has said that in the future the amount of identities all the characters will have will be closer to equal. So with time this won't be a problem, but it is now and I want to rant. And yes, I finished the script yesterday and they kind of just teased an upcoming Foss identity today. So like, my point still stands, but holy shit is that Foster beautiful. The artist knocked it out of the park. But yeah, it looks like with time this won't be a problem at all. But my boy Sinclair still needs a he-ego. Give him he rotisserie desire, or however the hell you pronounce it. And yes, I know it's a Teth ego. I don't care. I just want to see the art of it. Oh, and on a more serious note, there are some status effects that are currently being treated like fucking prisoners of war. You're crying for you, Tremor. It's no shock to anyone that charges the favorite child in the game. And no, that pun was not intentional, but I will forgive you for hating on the fact that I still wrote it and said it. And there are some examples of builds not feeling finished, like how Ryoshi has a charge ID but she doesn't have a teleport ego or any ego that really feeds into that ID. However, those problems will be fixed with new IDs and egos. Like, for status effects, at the launch of the game, no one gave a damn about syncing, at all. Then we got Spice Brush Yee's song and all of a sudden everyone fucking loves it. All I'm saying is, any shit build or status effect is just a kid in high school that is yet to have their college glow up. Give them a bit of time, then they'll cook. So there is some concern with how Tremor is treated, but all it takes is a new meta ID and it'll be goated. Okay, with that out of the way, human fights. Let's cry about them. So I was hoping that with time, human fights became better, that they would feel more important. There were some positive changes to them, like how the sandy change made them feel less RNG focused as we changed from a 70% max, 2 roll heads, to 95% instead. However, I still feel like they are only a shell of what you could really do in the game. The differences between abnormality fights and human fights is way too vast. I feel like in abnormality fights, I can really plot out a game plan and execute it. Whilst human fights are more on rails, my choices are deeply limited. Now, I do appreciate how fast they are, as that speed is essential for a mobile game. Although, as a consequence of us not being able to freely choose our moves, it means that 99% of the human fights boil down to one button. The Ascendant, the primordial, the original, and the all-encompassing god button. Win rate. Since we don't have that much freedom in who does what, win rate is safe as hell to press for most human fights. In the difficult ones, you press it, check if there's a hopeless clash, and from there pop an ego if there is. And since human fights make up the majority of the content, that means most of the time I'm playing the game, I'm just pressing win rate. So personally, I'd like to see some option to redirect moves in a human fight, as from there I now have an option that wouldn't be covered by auto battling. Or just something to make them move beyond win rate span. I appreciate how good it is for human fights. Having a competent auto battle is a great quality of life, but I feel like there's a problem when it's my default option for those fights. Cause I ain't gonna cap, in between my recordings for Limbus Company, on the stages I don't show, I really am just dominating the win rate button like how I want to dominate Sinclair. However, there are some goods of human fights, like how getting multiple moves on a character makes certain status effects more viable, like poise and you know the one, it's charge, the most broken shit in the game. However, as I said, I'm just focusing on the negatives in this video. Though the human fights being win rate simulators isn't a terribly bad thing on its own. However, where I feel it hurts the game the most is Mirror Dungeon 2 hard mode. Now, I'd say Limbus Company is an easy game. And to see if I was an out-of-touch whale, I did a poll where most people said it's in between easy and average. So here's my full thoughts on its difficulty. When you are new, it's going to be average difficulty, as there are some mechanics you're going to want to pick up on, as when you start out, you're clueless. However, when you pick up on those mechanics and get a baseline feel for the game, there are 2 things that will stop you in terms of difficulty. 1. Cromer and the 2 other big bosses in Chapter 4, and 2. Being underleveled and under-uptide. However, when you get an understanding for those fights, and when you finish off your grinding to have a max level team, and also spark some good IDs from the boxes you got, there isn't much that can stand in your way. From there, all fights are free, which is where Mirror Dungeon 2 hard mode comes into play. This provides an environment where you won't just steamroll the enemies and where you can pick up different relics and do some weird fun shit. However, due to the majority of the fights in it being human fights, I find that what I do most of the time is just press win rate, as again, there isn't much of a choice I have in those fights, so I might as well just win rate it. The bosses are fun as hell to fight. Even though it felt like a chore playing against my form empties, I love that it made me feel like I was playing Library of Verona, where I had to plan out each of my moves, sacrifice some people, and really balance my ego usage whilst also figuring out how to nuke certain enemies. It was so much fun. Not the bull though, that bitch literally is just nothing but a rolling high and that's all it could really do. That shit feels like artificial difficulty. They just pumped roids in its ass and told us to go hog wild. Or is it maybe bull wild? But My Form Empties is a really enjoyable fight, though much of my love dissipates the more I have to fight it. Because again, it do be kind of tedious at times. Though I wish there were more moments like the first time fighting it in the game. Outside of bosses, I just press win rate and watch a show on my second monitor. However, I'm not saying this and asking for a buff to anything in Mirror Dungeon 2, as in the past we saw how RNG based some of those clashes work, due to just how high the enemies could roll. I don't want it to be buffed as it's a weekly farm and I want to complete it as fast as possible with low effort. That's where my problem with the endgame in Limbus Company lies. When you have your teams built, the only thing that can challenge you in the game is Mirror Dungeon 2 hard mode. But in it, you will spend most of your time mindlessly autoing the fights due to how human fights are restricted. You will have genuine enjoyment in the boss fights as those are difficult. However, if they get too hard, then they stand a chance to be incredibly annoying as you just want to finish your weekly farm and get the hell out of there. It's a catch-22. Make it more difficult to give players some content at endgame? The human fights are now back to being RNG based and the bosses are really damn annoying or sometimes a gate, like the bull. Make it easier so the weekly grind won't burn people out? Well, now all of Limbus Company is players pressing win rate and occasionally using egos. I find Mirror Dungeon is stuck with being a grind while simultaneously being the only piece of content we can really play in the game. As we all know, updates are rare as hell. Main story updates don't provide us with any lingering battles either. We clear those stages and never play them again, whilst event updates usually provide us with one stage to repeat an auto for 2 weeks as we lose our already crumbling minds. So the only thing we can default to for content is Mirror Dungeon. However, that mostly boils down to using auto outside of the 5 boss fights you're gonna have in it. And even then, I'd say the first 3 boss fights you can safely auto regardless. So after saying all of that and hopefully getting my point across as to why I find there isn't any good endgame content in Limbus Company, what do I want to see? Well, deadass, I want a new game mode. One that is really difficult, but we aren't forced to spend time weekly doing it. To me, I really love Refraction Railway. I find it's enjoyable to refine your strategy and reduce the number of turns per fight. Granted, the lower you try to go, the more RNG takes its hold, but getting under 120 is a fun experience to me. However, that shit is like a deadbeat dad. He comes in for our birthdays, we enjoy time with him, hoping he stays, and sure as sugar, the next day he left for cigarettes and we ain't seeing his ass for a couple of months. Why did I have to make this shit depressing out of nowhere? But I want a game mode that is challenging to endgame players, which gives us rewards that aren't tied to a time restriction. Something that will always be there for us to mess around in. Preferably, it's mainly abnormality fights so we can play the game in its best environment. I'm imagining something similar to Refraction Railway, a gauntlet of enemies. And from there, in between fights, we can maybe pick up some relics so we can do some wacky shit and have some meme builds going on. And we get some rewards for clearing it, possibly also have some challenges for us to do, maybe some stuff that incentivizes using certain status effect teams. Though in that case they'll probably need to lend out some units for us. Or some challenges that we can toggle to make it more difficult, like having max 4 people in a team giving us a reason to use tanks, choosing to give the enemy certain status resistances. Just some stuff that we can toggle at will to then complete and get rewards from it. Maybe every month we can get new challenges added for us to do which grant us rewards and possibly have an enemy refresh as well, just so we aren't fighting the same battles. Maybe we can even have a monthly squad in it where you just get a trial of different identities for players to try out. So if someone is wondering if they'll like the gameplay of W Corp Ryoshu, they can try her out there if she's a part of that monthly trial squad. I don't know fully, I'm basically just spitballing here. But to recap, Mirror Dungeon in its current state is caught between being all the endgame content we reliably got and what we are meant to farm out weekly. So I would like a new game mode that feels like the dedicated thing to do at endgame. The really challenging content that we can do at our leisure. No time restrictions on getting the rewards. Something players can just do for fun whenever they want to. And it's not like I think we need a new game mode for rewards, as the game is already really generous. Those would just be more incentive to play the mode. That's what I believe the game needs most, an endgame aside from Mirror Dungeons. Because I'll keep it a buck. I was beyond hype when I started thinking about making a charge-based team. That shit was gonna be fucking fire. But all of that hype dissipated when I came to the realization that all I could really do with them was go in the Mirror Dungeon and spam win rate from most of the fights. Another thing we need is more regular content drops, cause deadass, it's been half a year and we are only a third of the way done with the character stories. They are really coming in at a snail's pace. Deadass, gacha game players freak out about dead weeks. Dog, Limbus has dead months. though I'd imagine the reason for a lack of content is due to the relatively low size of the team working on it. Although with the success of Limbus, I'd imagine they could hire more people, so hopefully more people can get hired, and from there more consistent content can be pushed out. However, I don't want to comment on how much Project Moon is hiring new people and how much money Limbus Company has given them to work with. I have never once spoken to Project Moon, because language barrier, so it'd be stupid of me to come in saying that they are hiring X amount of people so we should expect X amount of content. All I feel confident in saying is, hopefully they can get a bigger team and work on the game more whilst prioritizing a healthy work environment. Regardless, those are my thoughts on what Limbus is having problems with. It'd be cool if skipping farming stages didn't cost you as much modules, and if when you skip, the enemies defeated in that stage go towards the daily missions count. Given time, we'll hopefully see more identities to help balance out how many characters have what, and to make certain unloved statuses be brought into the limelight. Hopefully something can be done to make human fights no longer feel like they are on rails while still holding the usefulness of the auto function, as it's extremely healthy for the game to have, but a bit concerning when it's the default choice. And hopefully we can get a new game mode for endgame players to enjoy the combat in, as Mirror Dungeon can't be too difficult without making the grind annoying, and Refraction Railway is a deadbeat who barely pays child support, and in time it would be ideal if there were more consistent content drops. However, those are just my thoughts on what I would like to see Limbus Company improve on, and to be 100% clear, I don't think the game is in a bad space at all. Personally, I still think it's a very solid game, I just believe it has some room for improvement. However, I want to end this video on a positive note. Those new eye changes for battles are fucking beautiful. Yo, they went gorillas bananas with those changes, they are godlike. Holy shit, it's so useful to see what ego consumes what, and it's very simple to understand what attack is going where. Whilst in the past it was literally looking like a random plate of spaghetti got massacred.